Don't let it finish that sentence, Victor Hale said, reaching for the plug. Marcus Reed stayed on one knee beside the battered robot, his red-handled screwdriver still touching the last copper lead, while 11-year-old Elijah Brooks wiped his face and pressed the start button. Blue light leaked around a green module wrapped in old yellow tape. North, the robot rasped. CO Amara Whitfield shot to her feet, and the program booklet slipped from her hand. The boy isn't finished, Marcus said. 40 minutes earlier, Marcus had been behind the stage at Carter Ridge Middle School, with his toolbox open beneath an electrical panel. The gym smelled of floor wax, warm plastic, and the sharp trace of solder drifting from the science booths. Above him, fluorescent lights buzzed in a steady rhythm except for one fixture near the east aisle that flickered half a beat late. He was tightening the last terminal when 10-year-old Nia tugged the sleeve of his faded navy work jacket. "Dad," she whispered, glancing toward the curtain. They knocked his robot down. Marcus followed her gaze. A boy was kneeling beside a crooked display board, gathering screws from the polished floor while shoes stepped around him. One hand held the robot upright. The other kept wiping at his eyes before anyone could see. A strip of yellow tape showed through a split in the machine's chest, wrapped tightly around something green. Near the booth, Victor Hale smiled for a photographer beneath an Apex Ion Robotics banner. He was speaking about equal opportunity while Dr. Linda Mercer pointed toward the rear curtain and told Elijah his project could no longer remain in the main aisle. Marcus closed his toolbox, then opened it again and removed the red-handled screwdriver. He knew the cold storage repair company was waiting for him across town. He knew that job would cover most of the rent he was still short. He also knew what it looked like when a child had been left alone in a room full of adults. "Show me what stopped working," he told Elijah. The boy swallowed. The wheels died first. Then the voice. Marcus did not touch the robot immediately. He asked Elijah to point out the power line, the motor, control, and the speaker circuit. The answers came quietly but correctly. This was not a child repeating instructions someone else had written. Elijah understood the machine. "Can you fix it?" he asked. Marcus looked at the clock above the bleachers. His phone vibrated inside his pocket. He silenced it without checking the screen. "You can fix it," he said. "I'll help you find where it hurts." He spread his jacket on the floor so the scattered parts would not be kicked away. Nia knelt beside the display board and held it steady while Elijah sorted the screws by size. Across the aisle, Victor's smile tightened. "Mr. Reed," he called pleasantly. "School policy doesn't allow maintenance staff to alter student projects." Marcus kept his voice low. "Then it's fortunate I'm not altering it." He placed the screwdriver in Elijah's hand. "He is." That small decision carried them back to the stage, where Amara now stared at the glowing robot and Victor's fingers hovered inches above the plug. The machine tried again. "North." Its voice collapsed into static, and the blue light vanished. Victor exhaled too quickly. "Unsafe equipment," he said. "Exactly why it should be removed." Marcus looked past him to the power strip. The stage lights had not dimmed. The circuit breaker had not tripped. He touched the cord near the plug and felt no heat, then turned it over beneath the white glare. A shallow silver scrape crossed the rubber where his inspection mark should have been. The cord connected to Elijah's robot was not the cord Marcus had tested 40 minutes earlier. Marcus held the unfamiliar cord between two fingers while the robot sat dark at Elijah's feet. "This isn't the cable I tested. Mr. Reed, step away from the equipment." "Who changed it?" Dr. Linda Mercer lifted the microphone before he could ask again. Her smile carefully measured for the parents filming from the bleachers. The gym had gone quiet except for the hum of the fluorescent lights and the soft click of phones being raised. Under the stage lamps, Marcus's faded work jacket looked dull beside Victor Hale's tailored charcoal suit. "We appear to have a maintenance issue," Dr. Mercer told the audience. "For everyone's safety, school personnel will now handle the situation." She turned toward Marcus without lowering the microphone. "Your assistance is no longer required." Marcus looked at the maintenance badge clipped to his belt, then at the cord in his hand. The implication settled across the room before anyone said it aloud. The man with the toolbox must have caused the problem. A woman near the front whispered that outside contractors should never have been allowed near student projects. Another parent asked whether Marcus had altered the robot to make it perform. Elijah heard them. His shoulders folded inward, and his fingers tightened around the robot's dented metal frame. "He didn't build it for me," the boy said. Dr. Mercer placed a gentle hand in the air, the way adults did when they wanted a child to stop without appearing unkind. "Elijah, no one is blaming you. You're not letting me explain. This is not the time." The words were soft. That made them cut more cleanly. Marcus crouched beside Elijah and turned the robot slightly so the exposed wiring faced away from the crowd. He did not tell the boy to calm down. He did not promise everything would be fine. He simply pulled his navy jacket from beneath the loose parts and draped it around Elijah's shoulders. "Keep both hands on your project," he said quietly. "Don't let anyone carry it away without your grandmother's permission." Victor stepped forward with an expression of professional concern. "There's no need to frighten him, Marcus. Apex Ion has trained technicians in the equipment room. We can examine the unit privately, determine whether any proprietary components are involved, and return it when the risk is resolved." "With an intake form?" Marcus asked. Victor's smile remained in place. "We can deal with paperwork afterward. Who signs for it? This is a school-sponsored event." "That wasn't my question." For a moment, Victor's eyes hardened. Then the warmth returned so quickly that most of the room missed the change. Amara Whitfield did not. She remained beside the judge's table, one hand resting on the program booklet she had retrieved from the floor. She had not moved to defend Marcus. She had not told Victor to back away. But her gaze shifted from the substitute cord to Elijah's hands, then to the green edge of the module beneath the yellow tape. Something did not fit, though she had not yet decided what it was. 40 minutes earlier, before the robot had spoken, the unfairness had looked smaller. It had looked like a table being moved. Booth 27 had originally stood in the center of the east aisle, beneath a white card printed with Elijah Brooks's name and the title of his project. The placement map remained taped beneath the tabletop, its corners curled from humidity. Booth 27, East Center Aisle. Dr. Mercer had arrived with a clipboard and informed Elijah that the recycled parts created an unpolished presentation near the sponsor walkway. She used the language of safety, visibility, and event standards. Then she assigned the space to Carson Vale, whose display carried new touchscreens and the logo of his father's company. "We need room. That's my spot. Don't make this difficult." Carson and two classmates lifted Elijah's table while the robot was still connected. The wheels dragged sideways. The metal body tipped against the floor with a hollow crack, and a plastic box burst open beneath it. Tiny screws scattered across the waxed wood, catching the overhead lights like spilled silver. Carson nudged the box aside with the toe of his polished sneaker so guests could pass. "It was already falling apart," he said. Dr. Mercer looked at the robot, not at the hands that had moved it. "Elijah, gather your materials before someone gets hurt." Nia had been standing near the refreshment table with a school tablet pressed against her chest. She raised it just in time to record Carson's group stepping away and Dr. Mercer pointing toward the curtain. The footage did not show the robot falling. It did show the time. It also showed the Booth 27 card still hanging over the center aisle while Elijah's table was being pushed out of frame. By the time Marcus arrived, the boy was behind the curtain, kneeling among his own scattered work as if he were the problem that needed hiding. Now, on the stage, Dr. Mercer reached for the robot. Marcus placed one open hand on the table between them, not touching her, only marking the boundary. "His guardian hasn't consented. You are a maintenance contractor, and he is 11. The room held still. Marcus's voice had not risen, but Amara looked at him again. He was not claiming expertise, ownership, or authority. He was protecting a child's right to keep hold of the one thing everyone else had already decided could be taken from him. Victor let out a patient breath. "We are trying to help. Then put your name on the transfer form." Victor did not answer. Instead, his eyes dropped past the damaged cable, past Marcus's tools, and settled directly on the narrow opening in the robot's chest where the green module waited beneath the old yellow tape. He reached for the robot before anyone had written down what he was taking. Victor's hand stopped inches above the robot when Marcus slid the intake form across the table. "Sign first. We're wasting valuable time. Then your signature shouldn't take long." The yellow tape inside the machine's chest trembled with each faint vibration from the gym floor. Elijah held the metal frame against his ribs, as though the people around him might take more than the project if he loosened his grip. Victor glanced toward the cameras, recovered his patient smile, and lowered his hand. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Mr. Reed." Marcus folded the blank form once and placed it beside his toolbox. "No. I'm making it visible." Victor turned away as if the exchange were beneath him. Dr. Mercer began directing parents back toward their seats, using the same calm voice she used to announce fire drills and schedule changes. Within seconds, the moment was being polished into something harmless. A technical delay, an overprotective contractor, a confused child. Marcus watched Elijah's face disappear beneath the navy jacket draped over his shoulders. The sleeves hung past the boy's hands. "Can we still fix it?" Elijah asked. Marcus looked toward the clock mounted above the bleachers. His phone vibrated again. This time the screen lit through the fabric of his work pants. Cold storage solutions. Final call. He stepped 2 paces away and answered. The manager's voice came sharp and hurried through the speaker. A refrigeration line had failed at a grocery warehouse across town. If Marcus could not arrive within 15 minutes, they would call the next contractor and remove him from the emergency rotation. Marcus looked back at Elijah, who was trying to fit a bent wheel onto its axle while Dr. Mercer spoke quietly with Victor. Nia stood beside the boy holding the display board upright with both arms. She did not ask her father to stay. She only met his eyes. "I understand," Marcus told the manager. "Call the next person." He ended the call before the man could answer. For 1 second, the gym noise seemed far away. The missed job was not an abstract sacrifice. It was the rent notice folded beneath the fruit bowl at home. It was the brake light on his truck that had been blinking for 3 weeks. It was Nia pretending she preferred the same packed lunch every day because she had heard him calculating grocery money at the kitchen table. Marcus slipped the phone into his pocket and returned to the floor without mentioning any of it. He spread his jacket more carefully beneath the scattered parts, then separated the screws into 3 small rows by length. "You know this machine better than I do," he told Elijah. "Show me the power path." Elijah pointed to a thin red wire, then to a small board beneath the motor housing. His explanation came slowly at first, but his voice steadied as Marcus asked precise questions. Which circuit moved the wheels? Which one controlled the speaker? What would happen if both drew power at the same time? Elijah answered each one. Marcus never said good job in the bright, exaggerated tone adults used when they expected little from a child. He simply nodded and handed him the correct screwdriver. Nia knelt beside them and placed a bottle cap near each row of screws so none would roll away. "I can count them," she said. "That helps," Marcus replied. Her face brightened at being given a real task. Elijah reached for the robot's chest panel, but his fingers shook. Marcus rested 2 fingers against the edge of the metal to keep it stable without taking control. "Breathe once," he said. "Then turn." The screw loosened beneath Elijah's hand. Behind them, Victor spoke softly to Dr. Mercer. "This is exactly why these situations become complicated. People like him confuse good intentions with expertise." Marcus heard the words. He did not turn around. A man could spend his whole life answering every insult and still have no time left to finish anything worth doing. Inside the robot, the green module sat beneath the worn yellow tape, smaller than Marcus expected. Dust had gathered around its edges, but the solder points were clean and deliberate. He did not remove it. He only brushed loose debris away with a soft anti-static cloth, careful not to disturb the tape. The handwriting across it became clearer. "Eli, keep building." SB Elijah touched the first 3 letters with 1 finger. "My mom wrote that." Marcus paused. "She helped with the robot?" "She left the notebook." Grandma said I could use it when I was old enough not to break everything. A small smile crossed his face and vanished. I guess I broke it anyway. Marcus looked at the severed wire lying near his knee. Broken and damaged aren't always the same thing. Elijah watched him, waiting. Marcus did not accuse Carson or promise to prove anything. He reached for the boy's soft-covered notebook and opened it only after Elijah nodded. The pages smelled faintly of old paper and machine oil. Childlike diagrams filled the recent pages, but older sections carried tighter handwriting, clean measurements, and a 4-point compass drawn beside several notes. A faded repair receipt had been tucked between 2 sheets. Marcus read only what was visible without unfolding it. Mason Street Electronics. S. Brooks. Voice Archive Module. Near the bottom, in smaller print, someone had written, "Keep offline until challenge response." Marcus returned the receipt exactly where he found it. Across the aisle, Amara Whitfield had stopped speaking with one of the judges. She watched him close the notebook instead of pocketing the paper, then saw him angle the robot's open chest away from the cameras to protect Elijah's family note from becoming public spectacle. Her expression did not soften, but she no longer looked at him as though he were merely a contractor interfering with an event. Victor noticed her attention and stepped closer. "That component may contain proprietary data," he said. "The responsible thing would be to surrender it." Marcus placed the chest panel loosely over the opening without fastening it. "The responsible thing is to preserve what we found and record who touches it. You're treating a child's toy like evidence. You reached for it before anyone else knew it mattered." Victor's jaw tightened, then relaxed beneath another professional smile. "You have no idea what you're handling." Marcus looked at Elijah. "Neither do you," he said, "or you'd be willing to put your name on the form." Victor walked away. Marcus connected his meter to the outer power contact without opening the sealed memory line. The display remained dark for a moment. Then 3 narrow bars rose and fell in perfect intervals. Not random static. Not a dying battery. A deliberate pulse, repeating from inside the green module as if something buried there had heard Elijah's voice and was waiting for the correct answer. The 3 measured pulses on Marcus's meter had barely repeated when Victor Hale stepped closer and said, "That signal began after he opened the machine." The words were calm, almost regretful, but they changed the shape of the room. Dr. Mercer looked from the green module to Marcus's toolbox as though the explanation had already been placed in front of her. A trained adult had interfered with a child's project, awakened proprietary hardware, and now wanted everyone to believe the discovery was accidental. "Mr. Reed," she said, "remove your hands from the robot. I'm not touching the memory circuit. You opened the housing. With Elijah's permission. Elijah is 11. Her voice remained professional, yet the sentence took his choice away from him more efficiently than a shout would have. Elijah pulled Marcus's jacket tighter around his shoulders. "I asked him to help. No one is accusing you, Elijah." Dr. Mercer's eyes stayed on Marcus. "But adults are responsible for understanding boundaries." Marcus disconnected the meter, capped both probes, and set them on the cloth one at a time. The pulse vanished from the display. He did not argue about his training or explain why he recognized a dormant memory cycle. Instead, he turned the robot so everyone could see the open chest without allowing anyone to reach inside it. "Then let's record the condition before another person touches it." Victor gave a small, patient laugh. "This isn't a crime scene." "No," Marcus said. "It's a child's project. That should require at least as much care." Amara Whitfield stood several feet away, her silver compass pin catching the fluorescent light whenever she breathed. She had heard Victor's version first. Apexion's internal history said Simone Brooks had removed a prototype without authorization, abandoned Project Lumen, and left the company with corrupted files. Now a contractor with an electronics background had opened a child's robot and discovered an active module carrying unfamiliar data. Suspicion was not unreasonable. What troubled Amara was not Marcus's explanation. It was how carefully he avoided making one he could not prove. Marcus asked Elijah before lifting the severed wire. "May I show them?" The boy nodded. Marcus placed a sheet of white printer paper beneath the copper, then angled the desk lamp until the cut surface caught the light. One end shone clean and flat. The strands had not stretched, twisted, or frayed. If the table pulled this apart, Marcus said, why didn't the copper tear? No one answered immediately. The gym's ventilation system clicked on above them, carrying the smell of floor polish and warm circuitry across the aisle. Victor leaned in without crossing the table. Old wire can become brittle. A sudden impact can produce a clean break. It was a reasonable answer. Marcus acknowledged it with a single nod. It can. Then he turned the other end beneath the lamp. A faint crescent indentation crossed the red insulation, shaped like the jaw of a cutting tool. But brittle wire doesn't leave a compression mark before it breaks. Nia stood beside the display board, holding the school tablet against her chest. The wire was inside when the table fell, she said. Dr. Mercer looked at her. How would you know that? Nia pointed toward the paused image on the tablet. It showed Elijah's robot on its side just after the table had been moved. The chest panel was still screwed shut. Because that part wasn't open yet. It was not proof of who had cut the wire. It only narrowed when the damage could have happened. Amara's gaze shifted to Victor, but she said nothing. Victor adjusted one cuff. Even if the wire was deliberately damaged, that has nothing to do with the module. We should not confuse student misconduct with corporate theft. Marcus looked up. Who said theft? A small silence formed between them. Victor's expression did not change. The device has an Apex Ion designation. We haven't verified that. You can see the serial marking. Marcus had seen it. He had not yet read it aloud. Amara's fingers tightened around the edge of her program booklet. Victor noticed and added more softly, I'm familiar with early company hardware. That is part of my job. Again, the explanation was possible. Again, it came one step too quickly. Marcus asked Elijah for permission to photograph the robot's interior. He placed the school newspaper beneath the housing so the printed date appeared in every frame, then took wide shots before close ones. The untouched solder, the yellow tape, the dust line around the green casing, and the serial number engraved into the metal rather than printed on a removable label. Lumen 07. He did not peel the tape away. He used an anti-static brush to clear only the loose dust along its edge. The handwritten message emerged in full Eli, keep building. SB Elijah's thumb moved toward it, then stopped. My mom put that there, he said. The tape was already old when Grandma gave me the box. Marcus photographed the writing without asking the boy to repeat himself for the cameras. Then he returned to the faded paper tucked inside Elijah's notebook. Under ordinary light, most of the receipt was gray blur and broken ink. Marcus held it beneath the lamp at a shallow angle. Pressure marks appeared where the original pen had pressed through the fibers. Mason Street Electronics. Voice Archive Module. Educational Transfer Approved. Dr. Simone. Brooks. Near the lower corner, a sequence of numbers was almost invisible beneath a grease stain. Victor's answer came before Amara could ask a question. Mason Street closed before Simone ever received Lumen 07. That paper proves nothing. Marcus kept the receipt under the light. I didn't say this receipt was for Lumen 07. Victor's smile remained, but the muscles beside his mouth stopped moving. Amara looked at the module, then at the old yellow tape, then back at the receipt. She still did not trust Marcus. She also no longer trusted the order in which Victor seemed to know things. Seal the component, she said. Victor turned toward her. Amara, company protocol requires immediate recovery. Company protocol is part of what needs verification. She called for a school representative, Elijah's grandmother, an independent digital archivist, and a written chain of custody form. Marcus slid the module into an anti-static sleeve without disconnecting it from the robot, leaving every seal visible. While the signatures were gathered, Amara's assistant searched Apexion's vendor archive. Mason Street Electronics did not appear anywhere. Victor folded his arms as though that settled the matter. Then the assistant checked the city's historical tax registry. A scanned business license appeared on the screen. active for 17 years at an address 3 blocks from Apexion's first laboratory. Marcus looked again at the faint numbers beneath the grease stain. They were not random marks. They matched the city's invoice format exactly, and the final 4 digits pointed to a service ledger that Apexion's own records claimed had never existed. The invoice number on the faded Mason Street receipt led to a service ledger the city still kept on microfilm, but Dr. Mercer refused to delay the competition while the archive was being retrieved. "We have a schedule. The boys' project is under dispute. Then he can withdraw." Amara Whitfield placed her program booklet flat on the judge's table, and the whispering around the east aisle thinned until the air conditioning became the loudest sound in the gym. "No one withdraws until the device is tested," she said, "and no one removes it." Victor Hale kept his smile. "A public test could compromise proprietary data. Then the test will be limited to safety and basic function." Amara looked at Elijah, not Marcus. "Can you operate it without him touching the controls?" Elijah glanced down at the robot, then at Marcus's red-handled screwdriver lying on the navy jacket. His answer came softly. "I built the controls." Dr. Mercer folded her arms. 5 minutes. If the unit fails inspection, Booth 27 is disqualified and removed from the floor. The digital timer above the stage changed to 5 o'clock. A student volunteer rolled a small safety cart into the aisle. It held an isolation mat, a voltage monitor, a fire blanket, and a camera pointed toward the work surface. Marcus checked the cart without rearranging anything. He noticed the monitor's calibration sticker was current, the extension cord was undamaged, and the test camera's red light was already on. "You may advise verbally," Dr. Mercer said. "You may not touch the robot after the timer begins." Victor added, "That should settle whether this is the child's work or yours." Marcus did not answer him. He tore a clean sheet from Elijah's notebook and drew 3 boxes in dark pencil. Power, motion, voice. Then he placed the paper beside the robot and stepped back 3 full paces. "Which system has to live first?" he asked. Elijah swallowed. "Power. Which one can fail without losing the memory?" "Motion. Then begin there." The timer started. For 59. Elijah connected the robot to the safety monitor. His fingers moved too quickly, and the first plug missed the port. A few students near Carson's booth snickered. Marcus kept both hands clasped behind his back. "Slow is still moving," he said. Elijah tried again. The plug seated with a clean click. The monitor showed a stable low-voltage draw. "Power is good," Elijah whispered. "Say it so the record hears you." Elijah lifted his chin. "Primary power is stable at 12 volts. The archivist's camera captured the display. Amara's assistant wrote the reading beside the time. Victor watched the green module, not the monitor. 3:42. Elijah activated the drive system. The left wheel jerked hard, dragging the robot sideways. A metal leg scraped across the isolation mat. Carson smiled behind his hand. Dr. Mercer reached toward the timer. "Loss of control." "Wait," Elijah said. The word came out sharper than before. He looked at Marcus. Marcus did not tell him what to do. He nodded toward the 3 boxes on the paper. Elijah stared at them for 1 breath. Then he opened the motor housing, disconnected the left wheel, and left the memory and speaker circuits untouched. "Motion can fail," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "Memory can't." The scraping stopped. The voltage stabilized. The robot remained upright on 1 locked wheel. Marcus's face did not change, but Nia squeezed the edge of the display board and smiled. 2:18. "Now prove basic response," Dr. Mercer said. Elijah held up a red plastic cube from the testing cart. The robot's camera rotated toward it. His right arm lifted halfway, trembled, and stopped. "Red," a thin synthetic voice said. A chair leg squeaked against the floor and then went still. Someone near the judge's table lowered a phone. The proof was modest. The machine could see a color, raise 1 arm, and speak 1 word. It did not prove ownership. It did not explain Lumen 07. But it proved Elijah understood the system and could operate it without Marcus touching a single control. 131. Voice archive, Elijah said. Victor stepped closer. That portion is not necessary for safety. It's part of his project, Marcus replied. Your role is advisory. Then I advise that he be allowed to finish the test you approved. Victor's expression remained courteous, but one finger began tapping against his cuff. Elijah opened the voice menu. 3 short tones sounded through the robot speaker. High, low, high. Amara's hand stopped above the program booklet. The tones were simple enough to mean nothing to anyone else, but 11 years earlier Simone Brooks had used that exact sequence every time Project Lumen completed a clean boot. Amara did not speak. She slid her phone beneath the table and sent one message to her assistant. Preserve every original file. Do not use Apex Ion servers. 054. The startup screen flickered onto the robots. Small display. A string of numbers scrolled past, followed by a date years earlier than the science fair. The independent archivist leaned forward. Don't touch anything. Marcus remained 3 steps away. He hasn't. The archivist photographed the screen, copied the startup log to 2 sealed drives, and read the checksum aloud. It began with the letters SBAW. Amara slowly placed both palms on the table. Around her, the last scattered whispers faded. Victor recovered first. Initials are not evidence. Anyone could create that label. Not during this test, the archivist said. The log predates today, and the hash was already present before the copy. The timer reached midnight. The test monitor remained green. Dr. Mercer looked at the results as if the numbers had personally embarrassed her. The device passes basic electrical safety, she said. That does not resolve the intellectual property issue.
No, Marcus replied.
But it resolves the claim that Elijah needed me to make it work. He turned to the archivist. Please list him as operator and designer. Put me under safety assistance only. Elijah looked at him. The fear in the boy's face had not vanished, but it had loosened enough for him to breathe without holding his shoulders against his ears. Amara stepped closer to the table. Did your mother teach you those startup tones? She asked. Elijah shook his head. I heard them on an old recording. Grandma said Mom used them when she wanted me to know something was ready. Victor moved between Amara and the robot with practiced ease. We can examine that privately. There's no reason to create confusion in front of families. Confusion for whom? Amara asked. Victor lowered his voice. For the child. For the company. Let me handle it through the proper channel. Marcus noticed Dr. Mercer glance toward the school tablet on the administration stand. Nia's earlier video had synced automatically to it. A notification banner still showed a deleted message preview from the event control account. Amara's assistant saw it at the same moment and froze the screen before anyone could clear it. The message read, Remove booth 27 before AW reaches the east aisle. Victor's name appeared as the sender. That was crowd management, he said immediately. The sponsor route had to remain open. Amara did not accuse him. She asked for the original floor map. The printed layout showed booth 27 assigned to the center aisle, and no other booth had been moved for the sponsor route. The atmosphere changed without anyone raising a voice. A judge stopped writing. Dr. Mercer's hand tightened around her clipboard. Victor's tapping finger went still. Elijah looked from the message to his robot as though he was beginning to understand that being pushed behind the curtain had never been about presentation quality. Then the archivist opened the copied startup directory and found a locked folder labeled Home. It required a spoken challenge phrase, and the access record showed the folder had not been opened since the year Simone Brooks disappeared from Apexion's official history. The locked Home folder remained on the archivist's screen while the City Records office sent back the first page of the Mason Street service ledger. Invoice number matches. Read the authorization line. Educational family prototype. The small printer beside the judge's table pulled the page through with a dry mechanical rasp, then stopped. Under the white gym lights, the copy looked ordinary enough to disappear inside any filing cabinet. Faded columns, handwritten dates, a grease-darkened corner. But the number at the top matched the pressure marks Marcus had found on Simone Brooks's old receipt, and the serial field read Lumen 07. Elijah stood close enough to see his mother's name without touching the paper. His lips moved over it once, silently. Victor Hale adjusted his cuff. A repair ledger does not establish legal ownership. A technician could have accepted stolen equipment without knowing what it was. The explanation was possible. Marcus did not reject it simply because he disliked the man saying it. "Then we need the transfer record," he said. The city clerk had included a scan of the document attached to the invoice. Amara's assistant opened it on a separate laptop that had never connected to Apexion's network. The form authorized Mason Street Electronics to convert Lumen 07 into an educational family prototype and return it to Dr. Simone Brooks. At the bottom was Amara Whitfield's electronic signature. Elijah looked toward her. Amara did not look back. She was staring at the date. "That signature is mine," she said. Victor's shoulders lowered by a fraction. "Then the matter is resolved." Simone had temporary custody, but the underlying technology remained with Apex Ion. Amara reached for the page, then stopped before touching it. "I didn't say I signed it." The air conditioning clicked off. For a few seconds, the gym seemed to lose all background sound. Even the paper lying between them appeared louder than it should have been. Amara asked her assistant to open her travel calendar from the same year. A conference reservation appeared in Seattle, followed by an airline itinerary and a hotel invoice charged to the company account. The flight had departed Atlanta the evening before the signature was created. Security records placed her at the conference during the exact hour the transfer was approved. Victor leaned closer to the screen. Remote authorization was common. She could have signed from anywhere. "Not with that system," Amara said. "The old certificate required my office terminal." The archivist checked the document metadata. The signature had been generated from inside Apexion's headquarters, not merely inside the building, but from an executive floor workstation. Marcus watched Victor's reflection in the black edge of the laptop screen. The man's face stayed composed, but his right thumb rubbed repeatedly across the side of his phone, as if trying to wipe away a mark no one else could see. Dr. Mercer cleared her throat. "This is moving beyond a school matter. Perhaps the remaining questions should be handled privately." Marcus looked at Elijah. The boy had gone very still beneath the oversized navy jacket. Adults had already handled Simone's story privately once. The result was a missing name, a sealed folder, and a child being called a thief for using what his mother had left him. Still, Marcus did not demand a public accusation. "Private is fine for personal information," he said, "not for evidence that can disappear." Amara's gaze rested on him. He was not asking her to believe Simone innocent. He was asking her to preserve the chance of finding out. "Create 3 copies," she told the archivist. "One for Elijah's guardian, one for independent counsel, one for external storage. Nothing goes to an Apex Ion server." Victor's voice remained smooth, though the warmth had left it. "Amara, that is an extraordinary response to an unverified municipal scan." So was trying to remove the module without an intake form. His jaw tightened, then released. "I was protecting company property. We are still determining what the company had a right to call property." The next record arrived from the hospital system after Amara authorized a narrow date verification. It did not reveal Simone's medical details. It showed only the admission date and time. She had entered St. Catherine Medical Center at 6:14 p.m. The resignation email attributed to her had been sent from an Apex Ion account 2 days later at 9:03 in the morning. Victor crossed his arms. Hospital admission does not mean she was incapable of sending an email. "Correct," Marcus said. He placed the hospital timestamp beside the resignation printout. "So check the device." The archivist expanded the email header. The message had not passed through Simone's registered phone or home computer. It originated on Apexion's internal network, from an administrative device assigned to the executive floor. The same device family had generated the false transfer signature. Elijah's fingers curled around the edge of Marcus's jacket. "My mom didn't quit?" he asked. No one answered too quickly. Marcus crouched until they were eye level. "We know the email didn't come from her usual devices," he said. "That is not the same as knowing everything yet." Elijah nodded, disappointed by the restraint but steadied by its honesty. Marcus could have told him what everyone wanted to hear. He could have turned suspicion into certainty and let the room's anger carry them forward. Instead, he protected the boy from a second kind of betrayal, a comforting claim that might later collapse. Amara watched him choose accuracy over applause. Then she asked for the internal access history connected to the device. Her assistant hesitated. "That archive is controlled by Apex Ion Security." Victor stepped in at once. "Which is precisely why this should return to the company. We have compliance procedures for legacy records." "Your department oversees those procedures," Amara said. "My office coordinates them. Then you will have no objection to an external forensic copy." A bead of sweat appeared near Victor's temple despite the cool air. He slipped his phone into his pocket and looked toward the cameras along the aisle. Families are watching. This speculation could damage innocent people. Marcus's eyes moved to Elijah. It already did. The external archivist obtained a read-only access image after Amara used her founder credentials. The logs were incomplete. Several entries around Simone's departure had been altered, and 2 archive references led to files that no longer existed. But the pattern was visible. Transfer record created, resignation email sent, authorship fields changed, access history partially cleaned. Each event occurred within 72 hours. This was not a single bad form or an accidental timestamp. Someone had built a new version of the past while Simone was in the hospital. Amara placed one hand against the judge's table. The silver compass pin on her jacket tilted toward the floor. "I received that resignation," she said, almost to herself. "I called her a coward for leaving without speaking to me." Elijah looked at her, but she could not yet meet his eyes. Marcus aligned the records into a straight row: hospital admission, false transfer authorization, resignation email, altered authorship record. "Don't look at them separately," he said. "Look at who benefited from the order." Victor's restraint cracked only at the edges. "This is becoming reckless." Simone had already compromised the Denver trial. Everyone in leadership knew the project had to be contained. The archivist stopped scrolling. Amara slowly raised her head. "What Denver trial?" Victor paused. "The failed field demonstration. That file was sealed before the board review. I was part of senior leadership. You were not on the Denver access list." No one moved. The faint blue lock icon beside the home folder glowed on the adjacent screen, waiting for a phrase only the past seemed to remember. Amara ordered the Denver access history retrieved. For names appeared: Simone Brooks, Amara Whitfield, 2 original security engineers who had since retired. Then a 5th entry, added later through an administrator override tied to a workstation outside Victor Hale's office. It was not enough to prove he had created the false records himself. It was enough to show he had touched a history he claimed to know only through routine reports. Victor straightened his tie. "We are not conducting a trial in a middle school gym." "No," Marcus said, "but you scheduled the awards ceremony before the verification could finish." Across the room, volunteers were already opening the auditorium doors. Parents began moving toward the stage. The live-stream countdown appeared on the projection screen. 12 minutes until the district-wide broadcast. Dr. Mercer received a message, read it, and turned her clipboard face down. "The program will begin on time," she announced. Victor's professional smile returned, thinner now. "Good. Then we can address the ownership issue transparently, in front of everyone." Amara looked from the altered records to Elijah's dark robot, then to the audience filling the seats beyond the glass doors. The evidence was no longer light enough to carry into a private office and close the door behind it. Victor had chosen the stage, and now the truth would either survive in public or be buried there. The auditorium doors opened beneath a red live-stream light, and the crowd moved in with the quiet urgency of people who sensed the program had become more important than the awards printed on their schedules. Folding chairs filled the floor beneath the Carter Ridge stage. The blue and gold school banner hung behind the podium, and the same robot that had been pushed behind a curtain now stood beneath the brightest light in the building. Elijah waited beside it with Marcus's navy jacket still around his shoulders. Nia stood near Marcus, one hand wrapped around the strap of his toolbox. Amara Whitfield took her seat at the judge's table without speaking. She had the authority to stop the ceremony, but she did not. Not yet. She wanted the record public. She wanted to hear what Victor Hale would say when he could no longer choose the room, the audience, or the people allowed to answer. Dr. Mercer stepped to the microphone. Her clipboard was pressed tightly against her ribs, but her voice remained smooth. Before we announce the district awards, we must address a procedural concern involving Booth 27. The projection screen behind her showed Elijah's name. A low murmur passed through the parents. The project contains hardware bearing an Apex Ion Robotics designation, she continued, and it received direct technical assistance from an adult with advanced electronics experience. Until ownership and authorship are clarified, the booth is suspended from competition. She did not call Elijah a thief. She did not accuse Marcus of cheating. She used words that allowed the audience to arrive there by themselves. Victor rose from the sponsor row and walked toward the stage with measured steps. His suit was immaculate. His expression carried the solemn patience of a man volunteering to solve someone else's mistake. No child should be frightened by a legal dispute, he said, and no struggling parent should be punished for trying to help. Several heads turned toward Marcus. Victor had made pity sound like mercy and Marcus's integrity sound like desperation. Apex Ion is prepared to resolve this privately. We will remove any violation from Elijah's school record, provide him with a new robotics system, cover his tuition for a summer STEM program, and decline any action against Mr. Reed. He paused while the offer settled over the room. To many parents, it sounded generous. To Elijah, it sounded like escape. Then Victor's assistant placed a document on the table. There is only one requirement. Elijah's guardian must transfer Lumen 07 to Apex Ion and release all present or future claims connected to Dr. Simone Brooks. The whispering changed. Elijah leaned toward Marcus. What does release mean? Marcus lowered his voice. It means they keep the module and you promise not to ask what belonged to your mother. Elijah stared at the signature line. His small fingers tightened around the old yellow edge visible through the robot's chest. Victor opened both hands toward him. It means you get to move forward. Without her name? Elijah asked. The question was soft enough that the microphone barely caught it. Victor's expression held, but his answer came a fraction too slowly. This is about protecting your future. For a moment it seemed he had one. A summer program, a clean record, a new robot, no legal threat. Everything looked safer than challenging a corporation beneath television lights. Dr. Mercer began sliding the form toward the edge of the table. Marcus did not reach for it. He looked at Elijah instead. You can stop, he said. No one gets to make you prove this in front of strangers. Elijah glanced at Amara, then at the robot. If I stop, do they take it? Not while the chain of custody order stands. And if I keep going? Marcus answered honestly. Then people may still say things that hurt. Elijah breathed through his nose, the way Marcus had shown him while loosening the first screw. I want them to hear it. Marcus nodded once. He did not turn the decision into bravery for the crowd. He simply moved beside the boy and remained there. Amara lifted one hand. The form stopped moving. Before anyone signs, she said, the record will be reviewed in sequence. Victor's smile thinned. Amara, this is not the appropriate venue for internal documents. You selected the venue when you requested public transparency. The first image appeared on the screen, Nia's timestamped video. It showed booth 27 in the east center aisle, then Dr. Mercer pointing toward the rear curtain as Elijah's table was moved. Beside it appeared the original floor map, carrying the same booth assignment. Dr. Mercer explained that sponsor traffic required last-minute adjustments. It sounded plausible until Amara's assistant displayed the full change log. No other booth had been moved. That proves poor event management, Victor said. It does not prove anything about ownership. Marcus agreed. It doesn't. The simplicity of his answer unsettled the room more than an argument would have. He was not stretching one fact into five. The second set of images appeared. The severed wire beneath the desk lamp, the flat copper surface, the compression mark in the insulation, and the robot's chest still closed in Nia's video immediately after the table fell. Victor said old wiring could fail cleanly. The independent archivist confirmed that possibility. For a moment, the evidence weakened again. Then Marcus asked one question. Could the wire have been cut while the panel was still screwed shut? The archivist examined the housing photograph. Not without opening the chest or feeding a tool through the rear vent. Was the rear vent accessible when the robot fell?
No.
It was against the tabletop. The audience stopped shifting in their seats. A child near the aisle lowered a candy wrapper without opening it. Victor adjusted his tie. Student sabotage, if it occurred, remains separate from the corporate matter. Yes, Marcus said. So let's keep the facts separate until they connect themselves. The screen changed again. The safety test footage showed Marcus standing 3 steps away, hands behind his back, while Elijah isolated the failed motor circuit, preserved the memory line, and operated the robot himself. The voltage report stayed green. The startup log displayed a creation date years before the science fair. 2 seal drive hashes matched. Marcus could not have invented the file during the repair. The atmosphere in the auditorium shifted. Parents who had been looking at his work clothes now looked at the way he had stepped away from the controls. Dr. Mercer's original accusation did not disappear, but it narrowed. Marcus had assisted with safety. Elijah had operated and understood the project. The adult interference concern is resolved, Amara said. Dr. Mercer lowered her eyes to the clipboard. Victor responded immediately. Authorship is not ownership. The child may understand the machine and still possess stolen property. The explanation gave him ground again. An Apex Ion serial number was real. Simone had once worked at the company. The module had left corporate control. A few audience members began nodding. Victor saw it and continued. This is precisely why Apex Ion offered a compassionate solution instead of prosecution. Marcus placed the faded Mason Street receipt beneath the document camera. The grease stain looked dark as dried oil. The words appeared slowly as the archivist adjusted the angle. Voice archive module. Educational transfer approved. Dr. Simone Brooks. Then came the city service ledger carrying the matching invoice number and Lumen 07 serial. Victor said a repair shop could service an item without proving lawful transfer. Again, he was right about the limit of the evidence. Marcus did not deny it. The transfer authorization appeared next, bearing Amara's electronic signature. Victor let out a quiet breath. There. Temporary custody approved by the founder. The company retained ownership. Amara placed her flight manifest beside it. Seattle departure. Conference badge scan. Hotel invoice. All time-stamped during the hour the signature was generated from her locked Atlanta office terminal. The auditorium became still enough for the projector fan to sound mechanical and harsh. Victor's eyes moved toward the livestream camera. Amara added the hospital admission record. Then Simone's resignation email sent 2 days later from an internal Apex Ion device. The metadata trail appeared in plain rows. Same executive floor, same device family, same 72-hour window in which Simone's name vanished from the project files. That still does not identify a user, Victor said. Executive floor devices were shared. Amara nodded. Correct. He seemed relieved until she continued. Which is why we requested the Denver access record. The screen displayed the sealed trial file and the administrator override linked to the workstation outside Victor's office. He straightened. My position required broad access. Then why did you tell us Simone compromised a trial whose report you claimed to know only through leadership summaries? Marcus asked. Victor's gaze sharpened. You are turning routine access into conspiracy. No, Marcus said. I'm asking why every routine step removed the same woman. No one applauded. The sentence did not invite it. It left the altered transfer, the false resignation, the missing authorship, and the displaced Booth standing in one line where the audience could see the pattern without being told what to feel. Victor turned toward Amara. This has gone far enough. Open files can be manipulated. Old recordings can be edited. We should stop before a grieving child is used to damage a company his mother helped build. Amara's face changed at the word used, but her voice remained level. Then the independent hashes will protect the company if the files are false. The archivist approached the robot. Before he could connect the sealed test cable, Marcus saw a different cord running from the stage strip. The plug was newer. Its black casing carried no white inspection mark. He crouched without touching it. Inside the clear edge of the connector sat a tiny thermal cutoff wired to break power after several seconds of load. "Don't turn it on," he said. Victor moved quickly. "That is standard surge protection. Not in the cable used during the test. You cannot know that from looking." Marcus pointed toward the evidence bag containing the earlier cord, its white inspection mark visible through the plastic. "I know because Elijah and I marked the one that passed." Amara ordered both cables photographed, sealed, and compared before the robot was powered. The replacement had come from the Apex Ion equipment area behind the stage. Victor said any volunteer could have moved it. The explanation was possible, but now every possible accident benefited the same outcome. Booth 27 moved, its power cut, its module seized, its folder kept closed. Marcus set his red-handled screwdriver on the table and stepped away from the machine. "I'm not here to punish anyone," he said. "I'm here so the truth doesn't get buried because the child holding it has less power than the people who want it." Elijah reached beneath Marcus's jacket and placed one hand on the robot's start button. The sealed test cable was connected. The independent drives began recording. Amara walked to the microphone and looked at the blue lock icon glowing beside the folder marked home. Victor's hand closed. Around the back of a chair. The entire auditorium waited as Amara drew one breath and prepared to speak the challenge phrase that had remained unanswered for 11 years. Amara leaned toward the microphone. "North Star." Elijah pressed the start button with one trembling thumb. For 2 seconds, the robot made no sound. The blue light behind its eyes dimmed, and Victor Hale's fingers slowly loosened from the back of the chair. Then the green module beneath the worn yellow tape pulsed once. Simone Brooks's voice came through the speaker, softened by 11 years of stored static. "Bring us home." No one moved. The locked folder marked home opened across the auditorium screen, its blue icon unfolding into 4 directories, while the independent archivist's drives recorded matching hashes. The projector fan whirred above the silence. Somewhere near the rear doors, a phone vibrated against a metal chair and went unanswered. Victor's mouth opened, but Amara raised one hand before he could speak. "Verify the files before playback." The archivist compared the checksum from the robot with the copies created during the safety test. "Original data," he said. "The archive predates today. No post-test modification." Marcus remained beside Elijah, not touching the controls. The red-handled screwdriver lay on the table where he had placed it. Elijah's other hand had found the edge of Marcus's navy jacket and held it tightly. The first file appeared. It was an old laboratory video, grainy at the edges, with a date burned into the lower corner. Simone Brooks stood beside a younger Amara in a cramped workshop filled with cables, foam panels, and hand-labeled circuit boards. Between them sat Lumen 07. Simone looked directly into the camera. "Project Lumen has 2 co-creators," she said. "Amara Whitfield and Simone Brooks." The younger Amara lifted the small silver compass pin now resting on the CEO's jacket. "North Star," she said. Simone smiled. "Bring us home." The video continued with both women describing a voice system designed for children who had difficulty speaking and for public schools that could not afford commercial communication devices. It was not the surveillance platform Apex Ion later sold to corporations. It was small, reparable, and meant to work on inexpensive hardware. Amara's hand slowly rose to the compass pin on her chest. She did not take her eyes from the screen. Victor recovered his voice. "An early concept video does not establish final ownership. Projects change. Employees leave. The second directory opened before the room could absorb his explanation. A recording box appeared on screen, accompanied by a waveform and Simone's digital signature. Her voice returned through the robot. This archive is being stored inside Lumen 07. If I am unable to continue the project, the module is authorized as an educational family prototype for my son, Elijah Brooks. Elijah stopped breathing for a moment. Marcus felt the boy's grip tighten but did not pull him closer until Elijah leaned first. I don't want him inheriting a product, Simone continued. I want him inheriting the right to ask what technology is for, who it serves, and who gets erased when money becomes more important than people. The old yellow tape inside the robot shifted with the speaker's vibration. The handwritten words on it were visible under the stage lights. Eli, keep building. SB Elijah whispered. That's her. Marcus answered just as quietly. I know. Victor stepped toward the archivist's table. Recordings can be edited. Digital signatures can be copied. His tone stayed controlled, but his right hand had begun to shake near his cuff. The archivist enlarged the verification panel. The recording signature matched the SBAW checksum preserved in the startup log, the Mason Street service record, and the sealed copies made before the public confrontation. Any change to the audio would alter the hash, he said. It has not been altered. A pen slipped from Dr. Mercer's clipboard and struck the floor. The sound seemed too loud. Victor looked toward the livestream camera, then back to Amara. This should stop now. You are exposing private corporate material in front of children. Amara's face remained still. The material was already used to accuse a child in public. She nodded to the archivist. Continue. The third directory opened into an audit log. Rows of dates, device numbers, administrator credentials, and altered fields filled the screen. The archivist moved slowly, connecting each entry to the evidence already shown. The same executive floor device family had generated the transfer form carrying Amara's copied signature. The same administrative route had sent Simone's resignation email, while hospital records placed her at St. Catherine. The same account had removed Simone from the authorship fields, restricted the Denver file, and rewritten the ownership history of Lumen 07. Then the final authentication entry appeared. It included a biometric voice confirmation. A waveform played through the speakers. Victor's own recorded voice said, "Approve override. Reassign Brooks materials to corporate archive." The room did not gasp. It went still in a deeper way. A woman in the front row lowered her hand from her mouth. Carson Vale stared at the award table, then stepped backward from the trophy bearing his name. Dr. Mercer's shoulders sank as though the clipboard had become too heavy to hold. Victor's face lost color, but he did not collapse or shout. He stared at the screen and tried one final explanation. Administrative overrides were routine. I was protecting the company from an employee who had compromised the Denver trial. The fourth directory opened. It contained Simone's ethics report and the original Denver field notes. The trial had not failed because Simone damaged the system. She had stopped it after discovering that Victor's team had redirected Lumen's voice recognition tools toward employee monitoring without consent. Her report warned that the change violated the project's founding agreement and placed vulnerable users at risk. Attached to it was an unsent message addressed to Amara. "If this never reaches you," Simone said in the recording, "someone inside the company has decided that silence is more profitable than trust." Amara closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked older, but no longer uncertain. She removed the silver compass pin from her jacket and placed it beside the green module. Then she turned toward Elijah. She waited until he looked at her before speaking. "Your mother did not take technology from us," she said. "My company took her name, her choices, and the future she meant to leave you." Elijah did not answer. He only rested one hand on the robot's dented shoulder. Amara faced the auditorium. Effective immediately, Victor Hale's access to all Apex Ion systems is revoked. The evidence will be transferred to independent counsel, the appropriate authorities, and an external forensic auditor. No Apex Ion employee will handle the original archive. Two security officers approached the equipment area, not as enforcers of anger but as witnesses to procedure. Victor's voice had gone dry. Amara, think about what you are doing to the company. I am, she said. For the first time today, I am thinking about what the company did to people. She ordered the science fair results suspended because sponsor interference had compromised the process. Booth 27 would not be handed a consolation trophy, and Carson would not be publicly humiliated. The competition would be reviewed by an independent panel, the school's actions documented, and Elijah's record protected until the investigation ended. Marcus said nothing while the decisions were announced. He bent down, picked up his red-handled screwdriver, wiped a line of dust from the grip, and returned it to his toolbox. Nia slipped her hand into his. Dad, she whispered. They heard him. Marcus looked at Elijah, then at the image of Simone still frozen on the screen. They heard the evidence, he said. Now they have to live by it. The robot gave one final chime. Simone's voice filled the silent auditorium again, not demanding revenge and not asking for applause. Eli, keep building. Elijah lowered his head, and the breath he had been holding left him in one small, uneven sound. The truth had finally spoken, but what Marcus chose to do with the recognition and power now turning toward him would decide whether this became lasting justice, or merely another reward offered by people who had arrived too late. The auditorium emptied without celebration. Parents folded programs and guided children past the darkened award table, speaking in voices softened by what they had witnessed. The live stream light went black. Victor Hale left through a side door with his access badge sealed inside an evidence envelope, escorted not by an angry crowd but by the independent counsel Amara had summoned. Dr. Mercer remained near the podium while district officials collected her clipboard, the booth records, and every message tied to the event. No one shouted at her. Marcus made sure of that. When a parent raised a phone toward her face, he stepped between them and lowered the lens with one open hand. The record is enough, he said. We don't need another child watching adults enjoy someone else's humiliation. Elijah sat at the edge of the stage with the robot between his shoes. Marcus's navy jacket still covered his shoulders, and the old yellow tape inside the machine's chest seemed brighter now that everyone knew whose handwriting crossed it. Nia sat beside him without asking questions. She placed one of the recovered screws in his palm and closed his fingers around it. It was a small thing a 10-year-old could do when the larger things belonged to adults. Amara approached slowly, carrying the silver compass pin she had removed beneath the projection screen. She stopped several feet away. Elijah, may I sit here? He looked at Marcus first. Marcus did not answer for him. Elijah nodded. Amara lowered herself onto the stage, careful not to touch the robot. Your mother deserved better from me, she said. You deserved adults who checked the truth before asking you to defend it. Elijah stared at the screw in his hand. Did you believe she stole it? Amara's breath caught, but she did not protect herself with a polished answer. Yes. Why? Because the paperwork made believing it easy, and she was no longer there to make it difficult. The auditorium settled into another kind of silence. Not the frozen silence of exposure, but the quieter space that comes when an apology does not ask to be forgiven before it is finished. In the weeks that followed, the promises made on stage became documents other people could inspect. Apexion's board suspended Victor and transferred the evidence to federal investigators, outside auditors, and attorneys representing Elijah's family. Simone Brooks's name was restored to the Project Lumen patents, its founding records, and every later product that used her work. The false resignation was removed from her personnel history and replaced by a public correction describing the manipulation of her records. Elijah's interest in the technology was placed in a court-supervised trust. Neither Apex Ion nor any relative could sell, license, or surrender his rights without independent legal review. Amara paid for that protection, but she did not control it. Carter Ridge removed Dr. Mercer from the science fair program while the district investigated sponsor influence and conflicts of interest. Elijah's disciplinary note was erased. The school adopted blind first-round judging, written consent before any booth could be moved, cameras covering the exhibit floor, and independent advocates for students facing intellectual property disputes. Sponsors could fund the fair, but they could no longer select judges, inspect projects privately, or approach children without guardians present. Carson Vale lost his award because the competition process had been compromised, but he was not marched onto a stage and shamed. He returned the damaged materials, helped rebuild Booth 27, and spent one semester volunteering under supervision in the new community lab. When he apologized, his father was not allowed to speak for him. Elijah listened, then said, "I accept that you said it. I'm not ready to trust you yet." No adult forced him to offer more. The science fair was held again 3 months later under an independent panel. Elijah entered the same dented robot. He did not win because his mother had died or because a CEO sat in the front row. He received Best Independent Engineering Process because his notes showed every decision, every failed circuit, and the moment he chose to preserve memory power instead of saving the damaged wheel. Marcus's name appeared only under safety assistance, exactly as he had requested. The largest change took longer. Project Lumen was returned to its original purpose and placed under an independent ethics board. Its low-cost communication system was licensed to public schools, pediatric clinics, and community programs at cost. In an unused district workshop near Carter Ridge, the Simone Brooks Community Maker Lab opened with donated tools, repair benches, and no participation fee. Amara offered Marcus a national executive title with a glass office and a salary large enough to erase every practical worry he had carried into the gym. He read the proposal at his kitchen table while the rent notice, now paid, still sat beneath the fruit bowl. Then he returned the title and accepted a different job. Technical Safety Director for the Community Labs, with clear authority, fair pay, and work that kept him close to Nia. His first policy waived all equipment fees for families who could not afford parts. His second required every adult mentor to document student ownership so no child's work could quietly become someone else's property. "You could have asked for more," Amara told him. Marcus set his toolbox on the new workbench. Its metal corners were scratched, and the handle had been wrapped twice with black tape. More isn't always the same as better. She looked at the box that people at the science fair had treated like proof he belonged behind the curtain. Now it sat among precision tools and new computers without apology, not transformed by wealth, only understood correctly at last. On opening day, Lumen 07 rested in a secure glass display with the Mason Street receipt, Simone's original sketch, the yellow tape, Amara's compass pin, and Marcus's red-handled screwdriver from the fair. The original archive remained in independent storage, and Elijah would decide how it could be used when he was old enough. Marcus handed him another screwdriver at the first student workbench. "Your turn." Elijah tightened the first screw himself. Nia counted the parts beside him, arranging bottle caps to keep the smallest pieces from rolling away, just as she had done on the gym floor. Months later, after the lab closed for the evening, Amara arrived in a plain coat carrying 2 cups of coffee. She did not bring a contract or an announcement. She stood near the doorway while Marcus finished checking a power strip. "May I sit for a while?" she asked. Marcus glanced toward Nia and Elijah, who were teaching a new robot to recognize laughter. Then he pulled out a chair. It was not forgiveness offered all at once, and it was not romance used as a reward. It was permission for trust to begin where accountability had already taken root. The old robot stood behind glass, its green module still wrapped in Simone's worn yellow tape. Elijah switched on the new machine. Its blue light filled the dim room. "North Star?" it asked. Nia smiled. "Bring us home." Marcus stood in the doorway with his toolbox in one hand and touched the wedding ring hanging beneath his shirt with the other. He turned off one row of overhead lights so the children could see the robot's small glow more clearly. No one spoke for a while because nothing needed defending anymore. Dignity had never required the loudest voice in the room. It had only needed one good man to stay, one child to keep building, and the truth enough light to finally be seen.